Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we will discuss different business valuation models. So far we have discussed the first method of business valuation, that is based upon assets, book value of assets of the company. We will first discuss or see the example of a asset-based valuation model. So starting with the explanation of asset-based valuation model, we will see that when we are about to value our shares, because shares, the people who are holding our shares are our owners, and we want to value those shares. So in the case of asset based valuation, the value of share in a particular class is equal to the net tangible asset attributable to that class divided by the number of shares in that class. That means that if they belong to a common stock of you have to see that what is the what are the net tangible asset which are related to that class, that shares, and what are the number of that shares. And in case of intangible asset, like we have different type of intangible asset, for example goodwill, copyrights, patents, and mostly when we are determining our resale value or determining our market value, so in that case goodwill will be assessed. And but we will not include the goodwill or patents unless if they have any market value. If they have market value, like for example patents, copyrights, if it has market value, so we will include those things in our valuation process. But goodwill is not included for sure, that when we are about to value our share on the basis of asset valuation model. Starting with the example of asset-based valuation, so the summary statement of financial position of ABC company is as follows. They have non-current asset, land and building, which are about $1,60,000, plant and machinery $80,000, motor vehicles $20,000. The total value is $2,60,000. Now the goodwill is about $20,000, and current asset include inventory, which are $80,000. Receivable have 60,000 value. Short-term investment have 15,000 value, and cash has 5,000. Now the total current assets are 1,60,000, and the total assets are 4,40,000. So we have 2,60,000 of non-current asset, 20,000 of goodwill, and 1,60,000 of your current asset, and the total amount of assets are 4,40,000. Equity and liabilities. In case of equity, we have ordinary shares of $1, which are 80,000. It has about $80,000. Reserve are 1,40,000, and 4.9% preferred shares of $1, and they are $50,000. Now we have non-current liabilities, 12% loan notes, they are actually $60,000. Deferred taxation $10,000. The total non-current liabilities are 70,000. And current liabilities include payables of $60,000, taxation of $20,000, and proposed ordinary dividend is $20,000. That is about total of 1 lakh. Now obviously the amount of equity and liabilities are 4,40,000. Now in what they want us to do, that we have to find out the value of an ordinary shares using the net assets basis of valuation. So over here, first of all, if the given figure the given figure we have seen in the previous balance sheet are not questioned, that means that they don't have any doubt, and they are the true, they are showing the true values. So the valuation would be as follows, like total value of asset minus current liabilities. So this includes 3,40,000. Then we will have to deduct goodwill, that is about 20,000. We have total value of asset less current liabilities, 3,20,000. Then we have to deduct our preferred shares, that is 50,000, loan notes, and deferred taxation, that is about 1,20,000. So from to 3,20,000, we will deduct 1,20,000. Now the net asset value of equity is 2 lakh. Number of ordinary shares are 80,000, and obviously 2 lakhs divided by 80,000, we will get value per share. So in this case, what we have done is, first we have deducted the value of current assets from the total value of assets. Then we will deduct the value of our preferred shares, sorry, the value of goodwill, current liabilities, the value of goodwill. Then we have deducted value of preferred shares. Then we will have deducted the value of loans, and then we have deducted the value of deferred taxes. Deferred taxes are those taxes which are previous liabilities, which are delayed taxes. So we have to pay these taxes. So these are liabilities. So we have to deduct these liabilities as well when we are determining the value of our ordinary shares. So in that case, the net asset value of equity would we will get 2 lakh, and we have ordinary shares. So what we have done is, we have divided 2 lakh from 80,000. So we will get value per share for our ordinary shares, that is $2.50. Now the second approach to valuation process, that means that when we are valuing our business, the second method we'll use is income based approach. As when you are, or any other person who want to purchase a business, so what they are interested is, they are not interested in the asset the company possesses, but actually they are interested in the potential of those assets, or potential of the combination of assets. Like it can be include the management, it can be include any other thing which will be helpful in increasing the income stream of that company. So the approach is the king when it comes to business valuation, because the business, the people are in the business world because they want to make money, they want to multiply their money. So they are interested in those businesses which can have a potential for earning a considerable amount of profits. So if someone is purchasing a business, the number one factor they want to determine is to see their purchase price, and they see that once they will pay this money to a certain entity or certain thing, so how they will get that money back or more than that in the future. So the income approach involves looking at an organization's financial history to make predictions about their future profits. Not only that, they can also see many other factors, but in this case they see the financial history of the company, that what were their income flows, what were their previous sales revenues, and many other things related to that. And based upon that, they'll make the projection to see that whether they will be in a position to assess, or they will be in a position to gain those profits or not. So there are two methods typically used for valuing a company using the income approach, and we will discuss these methods one by one in the next slide. So approach, or first method we will use is price earning ratio method. So this is a common method of valuing a controlling interest in a company, where the owner can decide on a dividend and retention policy. The price earning ratio relates earning per share to a share's value. That we will see that which is the actual value of the share, and what is the earning per share, that what is the company earning on those shares. So the formula we'll use for a price earning ratio is price per share divided by earning per share, EPS. The market price per ratio is the market price in the market of that shares, and earning per share actually shows the total earning divided by the number of shares. So it actually shows the that if the company is getting profit, so how much each share is earning. So, and market price is obviously the demand of that company, or the demand of the shares of that company, because in the market your shares price will be determined by the demand and supply forces. So if the market price of your share is high, so that means that the company is generating profit, and company is very good in a position, and people are willing to trust on that company, and they are in a they want to purchase that shares. So market price divided by the earning per share of the of that earning per share would be is the formula for a price earning ratio. And also this can be used to value shares in an unquoted companies as well, the companies who are not listed. And so market value of that company, so over here we what we will do is market value of that company, or we can also use market capitalization, is equal to total earning multiplied by price earning ratio, and value per share would be EPS multiplied by price earning ratio, using an adjusted price earning multiple from a similar quoted company or industry averages. As we have discussed in the previous slides, that when we are determining the price earning ratio of quoted company, so we can take information of price earning ratio of a similar company in which is quoted in the security exchange. But so when we are taking similar companies, so we have to make it more suitable. We have to make certain adjustment in that, because in certain cases the company is private, and the most of the its shares or its assets are less liquid. Secondly, there are more, the company is more risky, because it's most of its management now is not as under control, management knowledge is not very enough, which is not enough, or not very not very explorable also. In that case, we have to make adjustments. Then lastly, higher projected growth levels. So in that case, we have to make adjustment. But the when we are come to attributed rule, it suggests that we have to make 10% adjustment per reason. But the adjustment is the or amount is not very important, but the reason is very important, because it can be difficult to estimate the manageable or normal ongoing level of earning of a company being valued. We have to make adjustment, because from time to time there are certain things which are being changed, like for example change in the directors emoluments. Like emoluments is actually the salary of the director, or the part of profit which he is getting from that, from the income, or any abnormal to normal level, or strip out of a one of debt write off. That means that like we when we write off certain debts which are declared bad debts, and we are not, we are not sure that we will get that the amount back. So in that case you have to write off that debt as well. So that is the cases we have to make adjustment as well. A price earning ratio is based on historical accounting information, where valuation should reflect the future earning prospect, so it should be adjusted for taxes as well. Like when we are making projections, we first of all we will see that what would be the earnings in the previous period. And when we are because it's market price and divided by your earning per share, so it definitely depend upon your historical accounting information and historical your historical performance in the so it's important that when you are making future projections, you have to make adjustment for taxes as well, because it might be possible that tax level would increase or decrease, or certain other aspect would be there related to taxes. So it's important that we have to make adjustment for taxes as well. Now, starting with the question of price earning ratio, Catcher wishes to make a takeover bid for the shares of an unquoted company, Mayfly. The earning of Julyfly over the past 5 years had been as follows. Now in this case, Catcher is a person, and his company is Mayfly. Now the company is unquoted. The Julyfly is the company which is unquoted, and now, first of all, we will see the solution, and first of all, we see the earning. So, average earning over the last 5 years have been 67,200, and over the last 4 years is $71,000. And there might appear to be some growth prospect, but estimate of future earning are uncertain. As a low estimate of earning in 2011 would be perhaps 71,500, and high estimate of earning might be 75,000 or more. This solution will use the most recent earning figure of 75,000 as the high estimate. Now we have taken the lower estimate and the higher estimate. Now price earning ratio of 15, that is of the Bumblebee, would be too much high for Julyfly, because the growth of Julyfly earning is not as certain, and Julyfly is an unquoted firm, as they have told us that we have to make adjustment. Now the Bumblebee is the company which has a 15 price earning ratio, but 15 price earning ratio is too high for July Fly, because the Bumblebee is the company which has a very high growth prospect. And if you are looking into the earning of July Fly, so they have not much growth prospects, so we cannot take 15. On the other hand, July Fly expectation of earning are probably better than the those of VASP, because VASP is a company which has poor profits, and so we cannot take that as well. A suitable price earning ratio might be based on the industry average, that is 10, but because it's an unquoted company, and unquoted company is a higher risky as compared to the quoted company, so we cannot take 10, because 10 is the average price earning ratio for a quoted company. So a lower price earning ratio might be more appropriate, like perhaps 60 to 70%, like 60 or 6 or 7, or conventionally even as low as 50 or of 10%. So the valuation of July Flash share might be therefore range between high price earning ratio. For high price earning ratio, we'll take 7, and for low earning ratio, we will take 5. So as for high earning ratio, we have taken $75,000 as a high estimate. So 7 multiplied by 75,000, so we will have 5,25,000, and the low price earning ratio would be 5 as multiplied by 71,500, that would be 3,57,500. So your the value of share might range between 5,25,000 to 3,57,500. So based upon that, the catcher can give their takeover bid, because the high price earning ratio would be 7 and 5, and the lower price earning would be 5. Now, things to remember is that the basic choice for a suitable price earning ratio will be of a quoted company of a comparable size in the same industry. So, this thing will be used for an unquoted company. Like when you are interested in an unquoted company. So, first of all, if you are using the price earning ratio method for business valuation of that company, so you have to see the price earning ratio of a quoted company, but that quoted company would be of comparable size, like they could have a same amount of assets, or they could have a same amount of products what they are offering, or a market share. So that would be their comparable company, and that company would also be in the same industry. However, since share price are broadly based on expected future earning, a price earning ratio based on single years reporting earning may be very different for companies in the same sector carrying on the same systematic risk. So we cannot use only a single base earning. We have to use earnings of different periods, because it will help us to see the growth prospects and any other things in that company. So when you are using a single year's reporting earnings, so that would be different from the earning which we will take for different years. Now, a high price earning ratio may indicate the growth stock. That means that the share price is continuously high, because the people have trust on that share, and the people expect that the earning would be increased in the future. So there is a growth in the earning. Therefore, the price earning ratio of it would be high for that company. But in the case of no growth stock, that means the company which has not had performed in the current period or in the previous period, but and their earning would be expected exceptionally low, but the share price is based on future earning, and which are the people which have invested in and share are expecting that the earning would become normal, and they will come back to the normal unstable level. So they have trust in that company, so their price earning ratio would be high. Then in the takeover bid, the share price would be high in the case of takeover bid, because it is expected that the company would be acquired and it would perform better in the future. That's when the price would be high. Or high security shares, that mean when the shares are in property companies, which has a very low income rate, but the shares are worth high because of the prospect of capital growth and level of security. That means that as you have invested in the property, so there it has security and identified security that you will get your amount back, therefore, and the capital growth, because the property would be continuously increasing in its value. So that's why the price earning ratio would be high for security shares. But in the case of price earning ratio, which is lower, so in that case, the people don't have trust on them, and they think that the future profit would be continuous to decline, and would be lower than the current recent levels. And the share price is low. That, as noted previously, share price may be extremely volatile. Like for example, the company prices are continuously going up and down due to certain situation of at a manufacturing plant of a particular company, or or any other incidents in which the share price had declined, or the price had been depressed due to these factor, due to which the price earning ratio would also decline. There are problems associated with using price earning ratio method, as finding a quoted company with a similar range of activities may be difficult, and most of time quoted companies are often diversified. That means that as you are determining value for an unquoted firm, and as the method suggests, that we have to find out the similar quoted company, and industry averages, and certain other information, in order to determine the price earning determine the prime earning ratio, and the value of a unquoted firm. But it's important that when we talk about quoted firms, so quoted firms are not working in most of the time, are not working in the same line of business. They might be diversified. They are working in different businesses, and they are well diversified. So in that case, you cannot take the value of that company, because they are diversified. Or a single year's prior earning ratio may not be a good basis, as we have discussed earlier, because if the earning are volatile means that in certain time period it's very high, in certain time it's very low, and it's rapidly going up and down. Or the quoted price, a company's share price, is at an abnormal level, due to, for example, to the expectation of takeover bid. Takeover bid, as we have discussed, that in case of takeover bid, there is an artificial increase or abnormal increase in the price of a company. In that case, it might be problem, because we if we take that value or that share price, it will mislead if the value of a unquoted firm. Or if a price earning ratio trend is used, then historical data will be used to value how the unquoted firm will do in the future. So obviously, when you are using the historical data of quoted firm to ascertain the value of unquoted firm, so it might create a problem. So the quoted firm may have a different capital structure to the unquoted firm. That means the capital structure, as you have discussed these things in your business finance and financial management, like capital structure is the combination of debt and liability, and sorry and equity, and the combination of equity used in the business. So the different companies have different capital structure, and it might be possible that the similar company which is operating in that industry, and they are with a quoted company, so there would be a difference in the capital structure of both the companies. So in that case, obviously should not be considered at a similar company, because their combination of capital is different than the unquoted firm. As we have discussed problems with price earning ratio method, and when the company which is thinking about taking over or purchasing or acquiring the other company, it not only see it should only see that the target company is forecasting earning not just its historical result. So forecast of earning growth should only be used if there are good reason to believe that earning growth will be achieved, and a reasonable estimate of growth can be made, and the forecasts supplied by the target company director are made in good faith and using reasonable assumption and fair accounting policies. So these should be there, like when you are valuing a company and we want to purchase that company and you want to see the earning prospects in for the future earnings. So you should be you should be sure that these all these information are being given by the directors in a very good faith, and there is a growth in the earnings of that company, and the growth estimate which are being provided or which the company is estimating are reasonable and based upon the assumption and based upon the facts and figure and the external market condition as well. So all these things should be considered while we are determining the future forecasting, or when you are determining the future earning of that the company on to which you are valuing. So in order to determine that whether the earning or whether the information or anything which are being given by the directors of the company or ascertained by the directors or the acquirer are true reflection of the earning of the future earning of the company, we can use another method that is called as earning yield method. The earning method yield method is simply the inverse of price earning ratio. Like earning yield ratio is equal to price earning per share divided by market price per share. As when we were discussing price earning ratio, for that we had used the formula market price per share divided by earning per share. So in this case we will use the inverse of that. This method is effectively a variation on the price earning method, and the earning yield being the reciprocal of price earning ratio, using an appropriate earning yield effectively as a discount rate to value the earning. So value of the firm is equal to earning total earning multiplied by 1 by earning yield. So EPS multiplied by 1 divided by earning yield. So this would be the formula for earning yield method. We can discuss or we can see the earning yield method with this example. Like company A has earning of 3 lakh dollars, a similar listed company has an earning of 12.5%, um, earning yield with earning yield of 12.5%. So for solution, what we will do is, for company A, we have the amount of earnings plus we have the earning yield. So what we will do is, we will multiply 3 lakh dollars multiplied by 1 divided by 1.25 is equal to 2.4 million. This would be the value of company A, and company B has 4,20,500 earnings, and their price earning ratio is 7. So we will multiply it by price earning ratio. So we will get 2.943 500 million, which is the value of that company. The dividend valuation model. The dividend is the amount of the profit which the shareholders get from the holding security. So the dividend valuation model is based on the theory that equilibrium price of any share on a stock market. That means that the shares which are traded on the stock market, the equilibrium price would be the future expected stream of income from that security. That what amount of dividend you are getting from that security as you are holding the security, and in certain time periods the company will declare the dividends and you will get that dividend, and you will get the dividend and expected dividend in the future. And what would be that expected dividend? You will be getting that from the security. Then you will discount those amount of dividends or amount of cash stream which will go, or income stream which you will getting from that security, and discount them with the the cost of capital. So you will get the true value of a company. So equilibrium market price is thus the present value of a future expected income stream. The annual income stream for a share is the expected dividend every year in a perpetuity. Perpetuity is actually a kind of security which will give you give you return for unlimited time period. Now, the formula which we used in the for dividend models, valuation models. First of all, we see the formula for the dividend model which has no growth. That means the that company or the share will provide the dividend for unlimited time period, but there is no growth in the amount of dividend. So it would be more on like the combination is the total amount of dividend in the unlimited time period. So for that we will use the formula that dividend divided by KE, that is the cost of goods sold. The formula would be used, that is that D divided by KE. Now, but if there is a company which has a constant growth in its dividend, so for that company, what we will do is we will take the dividend for the first period. That would be considered as D naught. That the current period dividend would be known as D naught, and we will grow it. And by growing it, what we will do is we will discount it by the cost of capital. But the formula which will be used and add up for unlimited time period. But the formula which will use is which will be used is dividend for the first period divided by cost of capital minus growth. So this is the formula which will use for constant growth. Where G is your growth, KE is your cost of good, so cost of capital or your discount rate, and your P naught is the value, market value excluding any dividend currently payable, and D1 is equal to the dividend for growing for with one growth period. So we will use this formula for our dividend valuation model. There are certain assumptions associated with dividend models, like these models are underpinned by a number of assumptions that you should bear in mind. Like we are assuming that in the future the company will pay you unlimited dividend for unlimited time period, or there is a constant growth in the dividend, so on. So investor these assumptions are included as follows. Like, investor act rationally and homogeneously. We are assuming that all the investors will act homogeneously, but the model fails to take into account the different expectation of shareholders, nor how much are motivated by dividend versus future capital appreciation on their assets. So this assumption it will be taken, but this assumption has certain drawbacks because it does not consider the different expectations of your shareholders. Then the D naught figure used does not vary significantly from trend of dividends. If D naught does appear to be a rogue figure, it may be better to use an adjusted trend figure calculated on the basis of past few years dividend. Like, that was the only dividend for one period. So it is better that you should use an average, or see the dividend in the few previous periods, and based upon that we will use the D naught value. And the estimates of future dividend and prices used, and also the cost of capital, are rational. As with other method, it may be difficult to make a confident estimate of the cost of capital. Dividend estimate may be made from historical trends that may not be a good guide for future, or derived from uncertain forecasts about future earnings. So these are certain assumptions which we have to take while we are using the dividend model, like the dividend model. But certain times these assumptions are created problem, because there are certain things which does not prevail in the few in reality. So that creates problems. So these are certain assumptions which should be kept in mind while using the dividend models. There are just different other assumptions of dividend model, like investor attitude to receive different cash flows at different time can be modeled using a discounted cash flow arithmetic. Like, there are different investors and they are receiving cash flows at different times. So in the model we have to use the discounted cash flow arithmetic. Then in case of directors, they use the dividends as a signal that the company is very powerful, as they are paying higher dividend to their shareholders. But in certain time we see that if the company is paying zero dividends, so in that case there is it is not possible, it is not true that the company has a zero share value. Then dividend either show no growth or a constant growth. And if we see the growth rate is calculated by using b multiplied by r, then the model assumes that b and r are constant. Then other fluence like terrorism attack, that like there are weather problem, earthquake, and any certain other macroeconomic variables which might affect the if affect the share prices would be ignored. Or the company's earning will increase sufficiently to maintain dividend growth levels. Like we are assuming for unlimited time period that the company will increase in its earning because they are paying dividend from their earnings. And if we are talking about constant growth models, that we are in this case we are assuming that the constantly the company is increasing its earning constantly. So they are in a position to pay the dividend as well. Then another assumption is that discount rate which we used in the formula will always be higher than the growth rate. There is the phenomena that we are if we are talking about perpetuity, so in that case the discount rate would always be higher than the growth rate, because the growth rate would be slightly higher for a shorter time period, but we are talking about for a longer time period. In that case the discount rate would be always be equal to our growth rate, and this would be assumption we will take in this model as well. Now we will start with the question associated with dividend model. First of all, the company paid a dividend of dollar 2,50,000 this year. The current return to shareholders of the company in the same industry is 12%. Although it is expected that an additional risk premium of 2% will be applicable to the company, being a smaller and unquoted company, computed the expected valuation of the company if the current level of dividend is expected to continue into the foreseeable future, or the dividend is expected to grow at a rate of 4% per annum, PA used for per annum or per year, into the foreseeable future. Now for the solution, first of all we have to derive the values for the formula, as we are two types of formulas. One is that there is a no growth in the dividend, and the second one is then there is a 4% growth in dividends. First of all we have to determine the value. Like for example, first of all we have to determine the cost of capital, as the return to investor or the was 12%, but there is 2% premium as well, so we will add these two and we will get 14% as our cost of capital. Plus the D naught would be is 2,50,000. This is the dividend at current period, and G is the 4% growth, and this would be used for the second formula. Now for first solution, we see that P naught is equal to D naught divided by KE. D naught is the current dividend, like 2,50,000 divided by 14%, that is the cost of equity. Or so uh, you will see that the value is 1.785714 million. Now for second B part, P naught is equal to D naught multiplied by 1 plus G, that is growth, divided by KE minus G. Now the D naught value is $250,000 multiplied by 1 plus 4%, that is the growth. So we will grow this dividend and divided by 14%, that is KE, minus 4%, that is growth or G. So now we will have the value 2.6 million, because in this case your dividend is growing, the dividend is growing, and there is a growth in the dividend, per year growth in the dividend. That's why the value is higher for the second question, for the second part. Now see this question: a company has the following financial information available. Share capital in issue is 4 million, or ordinary share at a par value of 50 cents. Current dividend per share is 24 cents, and it is just paid, so this is D naught. Dividend 4 years ago was 15.25 cents, and a current equity beta is 0.80. You also have the following market information, that is current market return is 15% and risk-free rate is 8%. Find the market capitalization of the company. So the formula we will use, the second formula, that is the with constant growth. So D naught is 24 cents, that is the dividend which is currently paid. G can be found by extrapolating from past dividend, like in the we have seen that 4 year back they have paid the dividend, that is 15.25, and 1 plus G power 4 is equal to 24, and then we will see that growth is 12%. We have to readjust the formula. So by the solving for the for this equation, we will get 12%. KE can be found using CAPM, that is the cost of equity, which we can determine the cost of equity with the help of CAPM, in which we will take the risk-free rate plus beta and return by market minus risk-free rate, or portfolio return minus risk-free rate. So we have we have 8% risk-free rate, we have the value of beta, we have the value of market return, and we have the risk-free rate. So solving all these, we will get 13.6% as a as our cost of equity, or the cost of equity. Therefore P naught is equal to 24, that is our 24, that is D naught, and 1 plus 12%, that is the growth, divided by 13.6, that is cost of equity minus growth. We will get 1680 cents, that is 16.80 cents as a as the value, or as the market capitalization. Now looking into this another question, in that case a company has the following financial information available. The share capital in issue is 2 million ordinary share at a par value of $1, that they have 2 million share amount of shares, and 2 million shares, but and their value is the face value of par value is $1. Current dividend per share is, which is just paid, is 18 cents, and current earning per share is 25 cents. Current return earned on asset is 20%, and current equity beta is 1.1. You also have the following market information. Current market return is 12% and risk-free rate is 5%. Find the market capitalization of the company. Now we will see the formula for this is the constant growth formula, that is D naught multiplied by 1 plus G divided by KE minus G. Now there is a current dividend dividend is 18%. The growth will be found by using Gordon's growth model, that is G multiplied by R. G is equal to R multiplied by B. R is equal to the return on the asset, plus B is the payout ratio. If dividend per share of 18 cents are paid on earning per share of 25 cents, then the payout ratio would be 18 divided by 25, that is 72%. The retention ratio is therefore 28%. So the B is equal to 0.28, therefore the growth would be 2 multiplied by 0.2 multiplied by 0.28, that is 0.56, which will give 5.6%. Now we will find out the cost of equity or return on equity, that is KE, by using the CAPM model, that is our risk-free rate plus beta, and return on market portfolio minus risk-free rate. So we will get the KE is equal to 12.7%. Now we will put all the values in our constant growth formula. So 18 is your current dividend, and we will grow it for one period, divided by 12.7 minus the growth, that is 5.6%. We will get 268 cents, which is actually 2.68 $68. The market capitalization therefore would be 2 million multiplied by 2.68, that is 5.36 million. 2.2 million is the amount of shares. Now, discounted cash flow basis, this is another method for using the share valuation, and it may be appropriate when when one company wants to buy the assets of another company, and they want to make another further investment to improve that cash flows in the future. Most of the case, when you are acquiring a company or merging with that company, so in that case we can use the discounted cash flow method. In this method, first of all, we will identify relevant free cash flows. That is, we will determine the free cash flow excluding any other another expenses or operating flows or any other thing. So identify rating free cash flow, operating flows, revenue from sale of asset, taxes, synergy arising from any merger, and then select suitable time horizon. Like we will see that how much time they will provide us cash. So for 10 period and 12 period, and the growth as well. Then calculate the present value over this horizon. This gives the value to all providers of finances, like for example, debt or equity, that the people who are providing you money, like in a form of debt or like in a form of equity. So they will get the true value of that. Then deduct the value of debt to leave the value of equity. So on the basis of that, we can determine the discounted cash, the cash flow of all the cash flows getting from that company or a firm.